And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Torn Quadcast, the show where we talk about sports and entertainment. As always, I am Elliot Serrano, Chicago's King of Geeks, joined by one of the Unshaven Comics crew, Mark Allen Fishman. How you doing, Mark?
I am alive.
And these days, that's, I think, pretty good. I mean, all things considered, with the craziness that is going on in the world right now.
Yes, I am appearing today, though I do want to let the listening audience know that Elliot is incurring a 37% tariff on my appearance.
Well, I am. Wait, you countered with like 10% on top of that. So
I have to. It's just what we do. But you know.
But
out of the goodness of my heart, I'm still here.
And we both have tariffs on the Penguins.
Yes. Yes. Both the ones on islands and the ones ruling Gotham's underground.
and I've got tariffs on the Lincoln Park and Brookfield Zoo Penguins.
Nice, but not the band Lincoln Park.
No, that's no. They're not. They've had a rough enough time as it is. They don't need more.
Tariff free. Go buy their album again.
Their album. That's cool.
Wasn't a fan. Whoops.
Ouch.
Sorry.
Anyway, so if this is the first time you've ever tuned into the Torn Quadcast, yes, we do like to talk about pro wrestling, but not just professional wrestling like WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, and so forth. To distinguish this show from other wrestling talk shows, because Mark and I are both kind of on the geeky, nerdy side and comic book creators. We do like to talk about comic books, comic book movies. We've talked about games, television shows, and the like. There's a lot going on within these next few weeks. I know, of course, on the pro wrestling side, we're about a week or so away. By the time this airs, we're going to be a week away from WrestleMania in Las Vegas. We've also got a new Marvel movie coming up, Thunderbolts. And we've got two Marvel movies, right?
Yes.
This year. We've got Thunderbolts and we've got Fantastic Four.
Correct.
Add to that, we've got DC is finally giving us Superman. Was called Superman Legacy, but now it's just like they're doing like Prince, where it's just a symbol, the Superman symbol.
Yeah.
They're not even calling it Superman. It's just the symbol.
Now you just have to go see the symbol.
The symbol. So,
but for the sake of argument, we'll call that Superman.
We'll call it Superman.
Okay.
And and a lot of stuff that's been going on, and there's of course a lot of crazy stuff that's been going on. Yes, we also we like to talk about fandom. If you tuned in to last week's episode that you can find here on the WRMN YouTube page, you'll see that Mark and I had a little bit of a go at some wrestling fans. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we were unable to show the image that we were discussing. But if you go to the Torn Quadcast Facebook page and you go to the episode 10 link, we'll have the video there. I'm going to drop the image that we were discussing there in the comments so you can see for yourself. Although I think we did okay describing what it looked like.
I think people will get the point, but yeah, just, put us in the shaker, give it a go, and then all of a sudden we're angry. So very, very easy to make happen, especially if you're a pro wrestling fan.
Yeah. Although I find, wrestling fandom is not that different from other fandoms. I mean, Cody Rhodes had this great rant. I saw it on TikTok a while back where he was talking about how wrestling fans are kind of nutty, but Star Wars fans are right now like the worst. And I say that as a Star Wars fan. The divisiveness and the toxicity in Star Wars fandom is just ridiculous. And again, it's stuff that should be making us happy. It's an escape.
Every fandom gets their turn. Whenever something occurs in their universe that causes opinions to form, it's always going to create these ground swells. It's not like the good old days when you just put out Empire Strike Back and everyone said this is the greatest thing ever. Don't ever change. I mean, really, if you lived through Temple of Doom, we welcome you here.
You got it. You had to go. You had to go Temple of Doom, huh?
I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of the fandom. I personally enjoyed it, but even as a kid, when I watched Indiana Jones trilogy, Temple of Doom was always the scary one, and I understood even as a child that it was a prequel, that it happened before Raiders, but it was so hard not to love Raiders more because punching of the Nazis.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that will never get old. The punching of the Nazis, mind you. For folks who want to know how I feel about Temple of Doom, you could always go to the MCU review page and go to the Top Men episode where we talk about Temple of Doom. And I found myself defending that movie against different fronts. And I had a former PR executive from Lucasfilm on assisting me. He also liked Temple of Doom. And,
Hey, well, that works. Hey, do you want me to do the world's greatest segue from Indiana Jones to what we're here for?
uh, this I've got to hear.
Okay, so one of the great things that I feel we have lost as fans are painted covers or poster artwork. Everything these days is usually hyper generated with graphics and whole teams of illustrators or things of that nature. But the Indiana Jones paintings, some of the best movie posters around. And I think that someone who is working in a similar vein and applying that craft to pro wrestling may be our special guest today.
As a matter of fact, yes, he is. And we've been
Nailed it.
saying that very good. Yeah. We've been saying this for a while that we want to have guests here on the Torn Quadcast. And I am so excited. I thought it would take us a little while longer to get this guest on, but lo and behold, his schedule just worked out where he could be our very first guest here on the Torn Quadcast. He is, as Mark described, a noted artist, painter, a comic book creator, just like us, and has worked for the big two, WWE, and is currently employed as a portrait artist for All Elite Wrestling. We all love him. We all know him as Rob Schamberger.
Hi.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
Back around. I actually have a 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon connection to Temple of Doom.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay. Let's hear it. Let's hear
you ready? Beyond it being one of the most racist movies ever made.
I knew it.
But my mother-in-law was a sorority sister of Kate Capshaw.
Oh, yeah. Now, Mrs. Spielberg. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So okay, but you never got it. You never got a chance to rub elbows, meet. Maybe she had a letter from Ms. Capshaw.
I've had no communication with her to her detriment.
Well, you know what? We all can't be that lucky. That's
right.
all.
You guys are lucky.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Rob, you and I, we go back a bit. I remember I interviewed you for the Chicago Red Eye way back when. This is when I think you were just first starting out with the portraiture. You were doing this
around Mania 30, like shortly after.
Yeah. And you were and this was when I remember because you had I was following your story. It was like one of the most heartbreaking experiences I could ever hear. I think you had packed up your vehicle with everything to go to the event, and you had a car accident, right?
Yeah, that was the year before. I'd driven from Kansas City to New Jersey, and I was 2 miles from the venue and got T-boned by a semi.
Oh,
yeah. Luckily, I walked away with a literal scratch, but my truck was totaled. All the artwork was destroyed. was able to like pull all my resources together and still do the show. That was before I worked with WWE.
Mm.
But yeah, that was a rough start.
It was. And if anything, I think because you really were very open about it and you were sharing it. And I know you have a newsletter that you put out that's like twice a week now, right? I mean, I know I see it twice a week, unless there's a level that I'm missing out on, as well as
Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
You got to get that premium pass there, pal.
you does. Well, you do have you have
I
your
used to. I
Patreon.
used to have
Yeah.
one. I don't have
Oh
one now.
no.
But yeah.
Okay. The thing being that you would share so much of your personal experiences on there, and it really, I mean, I don't want to blow smoke or anything, but it's really incredibly inspirational when you share your story about not only the creative process but all the things that you've been through. And I think for me, as someone who's both like a creator but also a fan, it helps me appreciate a lot more what an artist is doing and what they go through when they produce those things. Can I assume that that's kind of what you're hoping folks get from that?
Yeah. Like I feel like career wise, I want people to connect not just with the art but with me, like to understand the person making the work because I put so much of myself into each piece. Like even if it's a silly painting of the Shockmaster, there's still like hours of my life going into that. Sometimes days with other paintings, or I've had some paintings take a few months. It's a chunk of my life going into each of those, and so I feel like it helps people to understand, yeah, the person making this. It's not just a painting of Sting, right? Like there's a person behind it.
Both
Um,
sides. I would say, just for the sake of the poor Shockmaster, if you were to be rendering him, I mean, that's a lot of rhinestones, and
I've
there's no way to get around it, you know.
I did a show with him once in Canada, and we rode in the world's most uncomfortable limo together for like 3 hours. And
a big guy. I mean, he's kind of a big.
it was him, Billy Gunn, and Willie Mack. All of us in this
Wow.
limo that like where you were sitting was at the same level of where your feet were. So we all just had like our feet sticking out. And so like Billy Gunn is playing Candy Crush and cussing the whole like 3 hours. And Willie Mack is just like sitting there and Fred, the Shockmaster, is really wanting to talk with me about art and the Shockmaster.
Still trying to get it over. That's good.
He's like, I can't believe people like this.
I mean, I'm still personally baffled how LucasArts never did a cease and desist.
Well, when there was that one limited edition toy put out, they had to change the helmet.
Right.
And like I was never able, like when I was working with WWE, to officially do a painting of him because of the helmet. I think like it was obviously over and done with before Lucas could step in.
Smart. Smart.
Yeah.
It's funny because again, for those who do not know, are not familiar with the Shockmaster, and again, it does seem. I think there are. Okay, so there are two eras of wrestling. There's a BSM and ASM. So there's before Shockmaster and after Shockmaster,
The
depending
river
on how
pro wrestling.
depending how old you are, right? Because there are a lot of times when this is a thing with fandom too, and Mark and I talk about it, that the fans there seems to be a very limited sort of and I'm not gonna say this about all fans. I mean, but just there is the more vocal fans. It seems like on social media don't seem to have the overall I don't know, they have the deep experience that some of us have. I mean, like, what have we been talking about recently with what's going on in wrestling, where it's like, well, if this guy's really good, he's got to have a belt. They got to put a belt on him. They got to make him the champion, and that's the only way we know he's good. Then they're going, Roddy Piper, he had, when he was in WWF, he had one title, and that was it. But people never doubt his greatness,
Never a world champion, but you like Hogan's run doesn't mean much without Piper, right?
Or
Like
all the people he faced, really.
yeah, like I would say like the three big names to have never been world champion. Number one is of course Piper. Two would be Mr. Perfect, and three would be for me Paul Orndorff. Although I think there's an argument for Scott Hall in there too.
Yeah, he was definitely one. That it's at it, it's because it's that Kevin Nash had the bite at the apple, and they just never gave it to Razor. You could tell even back then he was on that same forever intercontinental
Yeah,
shelf.
yeah.
Which I mean, again, I'm not a wrestler or anything, but I would imagine had I been in that era, to be on that shelf, you could take a sense of pride in it to say like, these are the workhorses. These are the guys that have great match no matter who they're with. And, we don't have to put the rocket on their back for them to get over, which would be great. Nowadays, every company has 27 belts. So
Everyone.
So there's.
So that leads me to ask. So, like, every time there's a belt change, does somebody come a calling, Rob? Do you have to now make sure that you capture their essence at their
Well,
peak?
I pay attention to that because normally that would be the person that is getting the most attention. So there's the most not to get too crassly commercial here, but like the more emotional attachment that the fans have to one of the wrestlers, the more willing they are to buy something with that person on it. So a lot of times a world champion especially will be that focal point, but occasionally you get someone that's really good at their job and their job happens to be getting people to hate them. So like right now with Mox as champion, like those eventually sold the prints that we did of him, but it took a little bit longer because he's doing a very good job of making people hate him.
Did you
Like
did you consider putting all of the paintings of him in a locked briefcase?
I did definitely use a lot of red paint on it.
Yeah,
And like there's a couple other people that I always use as the comparison for that. Like the very best person I've ever seen at making people hate them is the Miz. And hand in hand with him would be like Baron Corbin, right? Like they
yes.
were so good at what they did on camera that the fans didn't realize how good it was, right? Like they were getting people to hate him.
True. And I know Corbin recently released too. He's now on the indies.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen he changed the gimmick up a little bit, and I'm hopeful that he's on his own pathway back, because he's definitely somebody that, as I was getting back into wrestling, I had been out of it for a while. I came in when Corbin, I think close to the time that he came up from NXT, I think,
Uh-huh.
and I remember thinking like I liked his finisher. I was like, well, that looks good, and it seemed protected. No one kicked out of it, which I thought was cool. But then he opened his mouth, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this guy at all.
Doing his job.
They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And for
That is
folks who are
good.
watching on the YouTube channel, you can see here. This is the John Moxley painting that Rob did. You can follow him on Instagram at Rob Schamberger. That's SCHAMBERGER, and see not only the paintings you're doing of wrestling, the wrestling, the professional wrestlers. Okay, but a lot of your personal works too. I see you have some of your some of the stuff that you've been doing from your more personal series. I know you've had a couple different ones there. I do want to talk about them before we get into them, though. Again,
Sure.
I just want to put in
Before
a
we
plug.
bring the show down.
Yeah, no. It's incredible stuff. But again, if you want to follow Rob on Instagram, you're on Blue Sky as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm not active on Instagram anymore, but I'm a little too active on Blue Sky.
Well, that's great too.
Yeah.
I know
Adding you now.
yeah, I mean, especially too when it comes to things like we were talking from the beginning about how posters are created and so on. We've got Meta um, feeding all the graphics into AI, which is, I'm sure,
What a bummer.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so I would say, but definitely follow Rob on Blue Sky and then subscribe to his newsletter. All right. So before we go into our first break, real quick, I know. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to fess up. I do not follow AEW as closely as my co-host does, and Rob, I know that's where you are. That's your wheelhouse right now. My only question is, when do we get another Tony Storm portrait? Because I am marking out for Tony Storm big time.
Real soon. Next few weeks, it's coming up. And
Um,
it's bloody. It's black and white, but there's some red on it.
Ooh,
See,
okay.
and I was going to ask specifically, Tony almost formed a tag team the other week, and they had the greatest team name in wrestling. Can't say it on air, but I'm hopeful that we get a print for that too.
She's one of those that sells out instantly, so no problem with me doing new stuff with her.
Yeah, I mean, really, you can just put the portrait of her tag team partner, and that name,
Yeah.
instant gold. Just print, put it on the card, call it a day.
I gotta know what this name is. Just drop it into private chat, Mark. Because just so you know, Rob, because it's a YouTube show and it airs on we call it the Stick here at out in the Fox River Valley in Illinois, the northwest and northwest suburbs of Chicago. So I think the last two episodes couldn't get aired because both Rob and I kind of slipped. I mean, Mark and I kind of slipped on a. Not that we swore, but we said the poo poo word that you're not supposed to say on the air.
Yeah.
And I did it. I think I caught it first, and then you did it later. So it happens.
I mean, mine was a compound word, so it was less harsh.
It was mine was. I should have known.
You dropped it. It's okay though.
I dropped it. All right, folks, we're going into the break. When we come back, we'll have more with Rob Schamberger, talk about AEW as well as the things going on around comic book nerddom, geekdom, and creation. This is the Torn Quadcast on WRMN 1410 and the WRMN YouTube channel. And we're back, folks. This is Elliot Serrano, Chicago's King of Geeks, joined by Mark Allen Fishman of Unshaven Comics, and our special guest today, Rob Schamberger, who is a renowned, I'm going to say renowned because I think your stuff is great, portrait artist, graphic artist, comic book creator, writer. You do a lot. It's like you're not in a box, my friend. You're certainly not in a box. You offer a lot outside of that. So thanks so much for joining us this evening here on the Torn Quadcast on WRMN Radio and the WRMN YouTube page. If you missed the first half hour, you can always catch this show on the YouTube page. Every episode of the Torn Quadcast has been archived there on the YouTube page. Just go to WRMN Radio on YouTube and go to the Torn Quadcast playlist, and you can find the last two episodes that didn't go on the stick because, again, we got a little bit of potty mouth. we got to stay away from that.
Never again.
Never.
G-rated filth from now on.
Well, because again, we're on the FCC is going to be the arbiter of what can and cannot be said. So I respect that, and I certainly don't want us to lose our license. Which, by the way, I went into the private chat, and yes, I did know the name of it. I saw the clip where Tony Storm was calling the what the tag team was, and I agree. Rob, if you could do that and put the name there, like do it like in like with lightning bolts or something, or dripping blood or something.
Yeah.
That's a seller right there.
Oh. Good pair.
It was. It is.
It was.
The moment itself was. That's it. I think if you watch back the clip, it's Tony Storm and Thunder Rosa. They were tag teaming, and Thunder Rosa was wearing the shirt, said Thunderstorm. I was like, oh, that's cool, instant classic. And right as they're about to announce the name, Tony like blurts out the new name, and you got that feeling like maybe that hadn't been planned, because I think Renee was the interviewer, and she almost broke immediately, which is great.
Again, I've been I don't really watch AEW as much as I follow Tony Storm, and I completely mark out for her. The algorithm has picked up how much I love her, and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube just keep feeding me Tony Storm clips. It's just Tony Storm clips, Tony Storm matches. I'm like, hey, I'm good.
Welcome to Tony Talk.
Anyway, so we were talking about the work. So, Rob, can you walk us through how that works when you're creating a portrait featuring one of the AEW stars? You already said there are some, like if they're champions or whomever, boom, that's going to sell. That works. Although you said the John Moxley one was a little tricky there getting it to sell.
Yeah, it just took a little bit longer because he's doing a good job of making people not like him.
Yeah.
Like a big part of what I do is I try to make the paintings not just look like the subject, but to give you the same kind of feeling as when you watch them, right? So again, like speaking to the emotional connection that people can have with who they're seeing on TV. And so I've gravitated towards a lot of the bigger, more established names because, again, people are having that kind of connection. But it's also fun to like do a painting of someone who's just now popping up, at least on AEW television. So like I've got a Speedball Bailey in the works.
Nice.
Because he's catching on with the fans pretty quickly right away. My cat is tearing stuff up behind me. But I found like even people that were maybe in WWE for a while and then go over to AEW, they kind of have to restart on getting that connection with the fans. So some of the people that have been in AEW for a long time, they do pretty well for me as well. Like of course, like Kenny Omega, right? Like when I did my first one of him recently, it sold out instantaneously. But then you've got people like Sting, who has remained as Sting everywhere he's gone. That does pretty well. Or Adam Copeland, Cope, the former Edge. Um, he does great. But then you've got like say Mercedes Monet, who is essentially a similar character to Sasha Banks in WWE, but she's kind of restarting. So it's building that kind of connection again.
Now I'm curious. I mean, obviously, like there's so many great port. Like I'm lost. I've got the same what we're sharing on the YouTube right now. I've got it on my second screen. I keep getting lost in it, playing Who's Who. I am curious, like when you say like when it comes to like the selling of these. So, if a fan of your work, how are they getting these? Are these all poster prints that they're getting? Are they trading cards? How is it
Uh,
being used?
yeah, they're art prints, largely 11 by 14, and the majority are signed by the subject. I'll we'll do a limited run. I'll sign a number. All of those I have them printed here in Kansas City. Then I ship them to Pro Wrestling Tees Shop AEW there in Chicago, and they work with the people in AEW to get them signed, and then we list them on the site.
You're breaking my heart. I was hoping they just flew you around and just let you come to the arenas and just get a stack of them signed.
I did that for a decade with WWE, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Could be a lot. That could be a
It's
lot.
it's a lot of personalities you got to deal with, and I'm a personality myself, and um, I've got a fragile artist ego, so sometimes you know like they didn't have to sign them in WWE. You would ask them, and if they chose to do it, they would. So like you're facing like rejection every time, and or they'll be like, "Oh, I'll come back," and then they come back at like the end of the night, and it's like, "Oh man, I could have like been back at my hotel bar at 9 p.m. and you've got me here till 11." Yeah, I did all that for a long time, and it's okay to not be doing that anymore.
There's
No
a
doubt.
there's a story you shared. I think you did one of the Iron Sheik, right? That he saw that he really enjoyed.
Yeah, that was for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Museum in Iowa. Um, he, you know, like speaking in English wasn't a forte for him to begin with, right? But it was later in life for him, and they were honoring him there, inducting him into the Hall of Fame at the museum there. And so he and his whole family come in, and the museum had me do a painting of him for it. And he comes up on his rascal scooter, and he points at me and he says, You paint this?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "You are an artist." I'm like, "Thanks for noticing." But his family just couldn't have been lovelier. He was a very nice man himself, and it was cool. Like that was a smaller function, but it was more based on his amateur wrestling background. So he was it really meant a lot to him, right? It wasn't a show for cameras. It was like a genuine honor. Uh, that's been like kind of the coolest thing with what I do is getting those kind of like personal connections with a lot of the subjects and especially their families.
It's funny because I remember, well, it was going around social media after Hulk Hogan made his appearance at the RNC that, wow, look at that. Who would have known that the Iron Sheik is a greater American than, oh yeah, sorry, I don't mean to bring politics into this.
Hey, Iron Sheik and Bobby the Brain Heenan were telling us all along.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
that they were. and uh
You know, the funny thing, like, even as a child, it was something that I kept like asking my dad or my older cousins or anyone who liked wrestling. I was like, why is Hulk Hogan's best friend Brutus the Barber Beefcake? He seems like not that like high on the ticket. Like, shouldn't he be friends with like Ric Flair or, you know, Roddy Piper when he was a good guy for half a minute, or like any, and you know, all they would do is like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Poor
But
Brutai.
good
Poor
hang.
Brutai.
and
Uh,
I really want to set up this. I've got the Iron Sheik portrait up here to share, and of course, the system is making it difficult for me. I guess StreamYard loves Hulk Hogan and didn't care for my comment, so I'm just gonna have to encourage folks to follow Rob on Blue Sky and look at samples of his artwork. And you have a web page too, right? You have
Not currently. Um, when things
like
went with WWE, I had to rejigger a lot, but
uh,
I've got a Substack newsletter as well, where you can get. It's kind of my central thing right now.
I would say the Substack. Yes, you have a Substack. That's what everyone. That's the way to go now. It's either a Substack. That's remember when Reddit was the thing, and then that got toxic, and you couldn't
Yeah,
go anymore. So
they all do
Substack for
that.
now.
yeah.
Yeah,
I like Substack as an email newsletter service. It's I can go a little bit longer with my thoughts and make it a little more meaningful. And plus, it's like I'm not constantly trying to get like likes and shares and stuff. It's like here's the people that actually want to see my stuff. They signed up to get it. So I feel like I can be a little more genuine in that space.
something that you recently did, and this is something I would encourage folks to subscribe to Rob's Substack. Is you shared. I mean, well, first you do a series of paintings. I know you've done series of paintings showing different emotional states. Talking about you have a series that's talking about the things that people need, what their needs are,
Uh huh.
and coming up with visual representations of how you see it or how people can see it. And um, I'm not doing it justice with how I'm describing it, so I apologize for that. But the one thing that you just did that again, I enjoyed it so much I had to like email you and say, dude, thank you so much for sharing this. You found an old comic book that you did when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And I know, Mark, you've did it. I did it too. We drew comic books as kids, but you went an extra step. Is that you found it, and then you were like, okay, I'm going to take this comic book, this thing that I've written on, paper, and I'm now going to collaborate with my younger self, take this story and pretty much do it again, but with all the skill that I have now that, that I didn't have then. Although, mind you, I was looking at your original, they're going, man, you did have a really good eye for layout and things. So, anywho.
Thanks.
And then you had the pages, and I think you kept showing, I think over a few weeks, you were
Yeah.
showing progress with each page until finally you released the whole thing like in one big bit. And then oh my goodness. And the part that touched me so much was how you put in the captions essentially what you were saying to your younger self
Yeah.
at each time, which to me, and I will say this first, technically brilliant, emotionally incredibly resonant. I'm going to assume for you, considering how vulnerable that made you, terrifying.
Those paintings that you were just talking about, the emotion series, and now the human needs. All of this originates from the work I'm doing in therapy, and I'm trying to like be public about like, yeah, I'm a guy that needs therapy, and trying to normalize it for other people. But over time, like I've done paintings so that I can figure out things about myself because like that's the way in that I understand, right? Like I spend so much of my time developing my skills as an artist. It's like how can I incorporate this so that I can learn more about myself and then in turn help others, right? Like there was a painting that in World War II, Life magazine embedded an artist in the Pacific Theater, and he did this painting called the Marines call it that 2,000-yard stare is the name of it. I forget the name of the artist. I'm sorry, but the reason that he was there was to get the emotional resonance of what war was like across. And the military, through studying that painting, were able to discover something that they couldn't get through photographs or movies. And that was at first called combat stress disorder, which later became known as post traumatic stress disorder, which is something I live with. And so our very awareness that this thing exists, and now that there's treatment for that, comes through from this guy doing this painting. So I've started doing a lot of paintings like that as well. Like at first, just to help myself, but I've heard from a lot of people that it helps them to understand things as well. So then going the next step with the comic is called Mystery Man. And it was something I made when I was 13. It was like the second comic I had made as a kid, but it was where like, wow, like over a weekend I drew it, and it was just 6 pages, but it's like, wow, I made this. It feels pretty special. Um, but I was looking at it again, and I've kind of had interest of doing a graphic novel again, and I was like, it'd be fun just to redraw this, right? Like just for fun. And as I was working on the first page, I felt like I was collaborating with my younger self. And so as it was going, it's something in therapy that's called inner child work, where you're almost reparenting yourself and discovering a lot of things that like were mapped onto you as a child that aren't helping you so much as an adult, and getting in conversation with myself again through the way that I know, which is through my art. So then when I had the idea to connect the original story with what I did now, um, it was like a really truly profound experience for me. Like what I was writing, what you can read in there, was kind of done in real time. Like I didn't edit again like you're supposed to. So like by the time I got to the eighth page, I'm not ashamed to admit I was crying. Like there were like realizations about myself that I did not see coming. And so it was just on Monday, I was talking with my therapist about it, and I told her like it kind of feels like that movie Boyhood. I don't know if you guys are familiar, where um, Richard Linklater did this movie over the course of like 18 years, from when this kid is born all the way up to when he's 18. And you get this kind of generational thing that is almost impossible to capture, and it kind of worked as a comic as well. And I've had some friends in the comic industry tell me that they were having that kind of experience reading it. Like it's a kind of thing that would only work as a comic, and they said that I pulled it off pretty well too, which was nice to hear. And I've had some people reach out to say that it's helped them figure some things out about themselves.
Again, it was. I'll be honest, because I was following you going through the whole process, and then when you finally put it all together in one bit, I was like, I was not expecting that the kind of there was a lot of it that also resonated with me too. And I was like, oh, I was not expecting this. So
Yeah, and I wasn't either. It happened organically. Like, again, I started this just for fun as like a warm up, right? Like, hey, this would be cool. Just at first, like trying to think like a 13-year-old of like just draw the cool stuff, right? Like, don't draw the boring stuff, but like what's cool to me now, right? So, like, as a kid, I didn't draw the backgrounds. I love drawing scenery now. So like mixing those kinds of things in, but like quickly I was like, I'm having like an actual experience here. And it's cool when that happens.
we'll show this one real quick. This is some of your other work here, but this part, this is from your emotion series.
Yeah, yeah. So that one is called Accepted. And so what I've done with all these paintings, there's a concept in therapy called the emotion wheel. There's like 11 or 12 core emotions. And so as a person with PTSD and also childhood attachment injury, I experience emotions a little bit differently from a quote normal person. So I did these paintings to try to communicate both to myself and to my therapist, like how I'm experiencing these emotions. So this one was for how it feels for me to feel accepted. So there's family, friends. We all posed for the reference for this. So in the painting, for the people that aren't watching on YouTube, it's me like playing poker with a bunch of people that I genuinely love, right? And it's warm and feeling accepted. But if you look a little bit closer, there's a window behind me, and it's like winter outside, very cold and bleak. And there's also me looking in, like the feeling of like, even though I am being fully accepted and realizing that being in the moment with that, there's still a part of me that's on the outside looking in. So again, I said we're going to bring the show down with these.
But it's powerful stuff. No, it's great.
It is.
I was only going to ask, do you hope or fear that the next wrestling commission that you take, that the wrestler doesn't see this piece and go, I need this level of emotional sophistication in my portrait? Danhausen must be here.
To ask for that.
All I'm saying is, I can't wait for that kind of piece with Danhausen.
Yeah.
Danhausen is very nice and very evil, and he needs to see all the sides.
I did a piece of him that was inspired by classic Famous Monsters of Hollywood magazine, Basil Gogos, the cover artist for that, and I did a painting of Danhausen in the style of that, and that was the single day best-selling print I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah,
Don't tell
including the
Danhausen.
WWE. It did well.
The man's got fans. Before we have to go too,
Hold on.
geeking me.
You know what we're gonna do?
No.
You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do bonus coverage.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna do bonus show. If you're listening on the stick, sorry folks, the show's got to go. But if you're watching on the YouTube, stick around. Short break. We're gonna be back with more Rob Schamberger here on the Torn Quadcast. We'll be right back.
Oh, that's right.
And folks, we are back. This is Elliot Serrano, Mark Fishman, and joined by special guest Rob Schamberger. This is bonus time. We are in the bonus here. on the Torn Quadcast exclusively on the YouTube page. The great part about simulcasting on the air and on YouTube is that when we drop from the stick, we can keep going on YouTube. And Rob, I'm sorry, I don't mean to impose on your time. You've been so generous. I didn't want to assume that you'd be able to hang out with us longer, but we had a great conversation going here, and I felt it wasn't proper to just drop it there. So I wanted to continue that. Plus, I did want to ask you about some geeky things that are going on. So,
Sure.
Mark, can you pick up again where we left off?
Of course, I only have 27 quick questions, and I'm out of here. No, I just wanted to art geek on this one. I was just curious about the mediums that you're working in, what you are liking these days, and what you're using in some of the other pieces that we've seen, like the big sellers.
Yeah. Primarily, I work with watercolor. It Originally that was because it's cheaper and quicker than the other one that I primarily work with, which is acrylic. Um, to get an acrylic painting to look the way that I want, it takes a little bit longer, and the materials and everything. Back when I was first starting out, that was a little more of a hindrance. Although now everything I do is like with fancy materials because I'm able to. So there's not a huge cost difference. But last year, I had like the super privilege of being able to spend a couple weeks in Florence, Italy, studying watercolor with a master watercolor artist, and then like studying all the art in person around Florence, like seeing uh, Venus Emerging from the Sea by Botticelli in person, seeing a bunch of Da Vinci's. Like the place that we were studying at was a converted farmhouse that has been owned by the Medici family going back to like the 1300s.
Wow.
And like when they gave us the tour of the grounds, they're like, now if you look at those two hills over there, that's what's in the background of the Mona Lisa. Like Da Vinci stayed here to work on the Mona Lisa.
Oh, that
So
old
like
thing.
if you want to get the imposter syndrome going in overdrive, it was
That'll
that.
do.
But
Did you go to the Duomo while you were in Florence?
oh man, yeah,
I thought
yeah.
I was in Florence only for 3 days, high
Uh,
school choir trip, but that still sticks with me. So
it was life changing, life affirming, um, and it completely changed my approach to art. Like a lot of my more personal stuff has sprung out of having done that trip. But I think that you can kind of see it's the shockmaster experience for me of there's before Florence and after Florence, with my art. I think there's like an explosion that happened around there.
it's awesome.
I was trying to find a piece there, but that's fine. Again, that just encouraging folks to go to your Substack, subscribe to your newsletter. I remember you sharing a lot of the bits that you were working on as you were going through that. So that was, again, I say if you're going to be an artist, also if that's something you're thinking about doing, Rob's a great be great to go for inspiration. If anything, to see your process, and I will say this, and you talk about imposter syndrome, and then I will sit there and you will. I Watercolors elude me because to me they're just so they're. It's not like digital or even like oil painting. There's just so much that you really have to have a good mastery of it to get it to do what you want it to do. Watercolor paints. So
It's letting the chaos happen.
well, okay, there we go. Because there are times that again you go through your process and you'll be going, I'm not happy. You even say, I'm not happy how this came out. Da, da, da. And I'm there looking at it going, geez, that looked pretty damn good to me. What's he talking about?
Controlled happy accidents.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's
There's
like
a
because
lot.
your work is definitely it reminds me. I mean, so one of my favorite artists growing up was Alex Ross,
Sure,
who brought
another
gouache.
other guy.
Yes. Which, yeah, I mean, look, if you live around here, that's just, if you liked comics and you're from Chicago and you don't mention Alex Ross, you get followed.
Bonus points for Jill Thompson.
Yes,
And Jill
but
too, but you get tariffs put on you, so we're trying to avoid more tariffs.
but I remember reading up on Alex Ross's all his stuff, and he uses gouache, which is, I believe, sort of like in the spectrum of painting that is not watercolor and it's not oil, and it's sort of in between, and
It's in
how it's
between,
treated.
watercolor and acrylic. You'll also hear it called tempera.
Okay, see, and I tried it once, and my art teacher that time just kind of patted me on the shoulder, and he's like, "Not for you. Just
Yeah, I did that for myself every time I've tried.
yeah, just stick to what you know." Hilariously, I was at it's one of those things when you were talking about your personal work and how you were making your way through feelings and stuff. The layers of guilt, that you couldn't see it. It wasn't a special effect, but the cloud over my head is actually the orange piece behind me, which is exactly that. I did woodcut in college,
Oh,
and I, out of nowhere, I was like, I really need to kind of see if I still have that in me. And I went out, I bought the board, and I didn't even know what to do. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go back to what I did, which was a lot of self portraits. I put so much time and energy and effort in there, and there's like, you could see it. There's like one sleeve carved, and it's there to remind me, and the actual gouge is right next to me over here, just to constantly remind me you're not doing enough. So
the biggest part of art is just finishing.
time so
Yeah.
much.
All right. Well, speaking of time, I don't want to infringe on yours much more, Rob. But before we go, we did bring up Alex Ross. This is where I come up with a kind of a ham-handed segue. Alex Ross, who most folks know for the work he did on DC's Kingdom Come, where he introduced a stylized version of Superman's S on his the shield on his chest, which has made the S look a little more alien, so to speak, and which appears to be the basis of the S that they've got on the chest of Superman in the new Superman movie. How's that? Did I get us there? Did I get
You'll
us
get
there?
we'll get you credit. Alex Ross will tariff you for that, but
Yeah. Well, no, I'm giving him credit for that. I mean, I think he inspired it just like Adi Granov inspired the Iron Man armor
Right.
in the Iron Man movie.
very true.
Anyway, to talk about that, Rob, what are you looking forward to the new Superman movie? And are there any comic book movies that you're really psyched for?
Yeah, this Superman, it feels like the first time really that we're going to get a comic book Superman movie that matches the spirit and tone of the character, right? Like, I love the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie, but it was limited by a lot of technology at the
Sure.
time. And plus, it was a long time in that movie before you saw Superman. But this new one, the thing that has me the most hopeful for it is that in the trailer and the footage from CinemaCon that's been put out so far, the first time that you see Superman use his powers in that is to save someone,
Mhm.
and that's meaningful. Um, like I loved all the original early Marvel stuff. I ended up kind of tapping out on it after a while, but like there was like a militarization of the superheroes that didn't work so well for me. And then like the Snyder stuff was not for me. I was not the target demo for that. Superman should be based, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the comics, where I developed my opinion. Uh, he's more inspired by a firefighter or an EMT than someone who's going into combat, right? Like he has these abilities to help and save people, and it feels like that's the way that James Gunn and company are going with this movie. I'm hoping that's the case, but it seems like that.
I, of course, am on board for Crypto.
Oh,
I love the character of Crypto, and especially when James Gunn, he's been describing Crypto as like a foster dog that is like the worst dog in the world. So for folks who have fostered animals, and it's like, it's not always great. Sometimes it takes some work to get these,
yeah.
uh, these animals can sometimes also have their issues, just like we as people. So
So this one can fly and has laser eyes.
Yeah. Somebody
so
was
yeah,
actually arguing about that. I saw it on Facebook post. They had put up the new footage, and someone lamented, they're like, "Thank God it wasn't Streaky, the super cat." To which I was, I had to type in. I'm like, he says, "Streaky, take me home," and the cat just like nibbles on his face and then just
Yeah.
walks away.
Washes itself a little.
Yeah. Looks at him in disdain, like, "What's wrong
Yeah.
with you?" Eh.
well, wasn't Streaky Supergirls though? And she had the horse too, right?
Yeah.
Was
Comet.
Comet, yeah,
Comet?
And
Comet.
then there's also, was it Beppo the Super Ape?
Beppo the super
Beppo
monkey. We could get through the entire menagerie.
I love me, but again, I love me some Crypto, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then you said you've tapped out on the Marvel stuff, so there's
Kind
nothing.
of like I'm looking forward to Fantastic Four. If it
Right,
seems like it's
right.
also kind of matching that tone. So that'll be, I'll probably go see that one.
I was going to say, I am looking forward to Fantastic Four more than Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Uh, like
Everyone is.
Thunderbolts is coming out around my birthday. It's like the movie that Marvel releases around my birthday every year. I mean, I wish they'd flipped it. Like, can I
Yeah.
have I mean, not that I'm a Fantastic Four fan or anything. For folks who
My,
are wondering what
my,
that is,
my hope for Thunderbolts is that somehow, and it doesn't seem like they're going to, but if they did that huge reveal from the original first issue of Thunderbolts, right? Like that, oh, all of this was something else all along,
yeah,
right? Like in the original comic, it turned out they
I
were
think
all
we would all wish for that, but they have done no work to set that up.
no, and I
Uh,
don't know that people have built up any kind of emotional attachment to these characters, which they hadn't to the original Thunderbolts either, right? Like those characters were introduced like 2 times before the comic started. But what a cool moment that was back then. Like, I know you guys are around the same age I am. When that comic came out, it was like, how'd they pull
oh
this?
yeah,
This was amazing.
oh yeah.
yeah.
When it dropped, if you were in the know, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh wow.
Like,
I felt similar. I mean, I think they did it years later with was it Young Avengers?
oh, yeah, yeah. With,
When
when it revealed
Iron
like,
La-
who each of the characters actually were. And,
Yeah.
like, way back in the day, like, my all-time favorite comic book is Legion of Superheroes, and, I just reread the Great Darkness saga, and it was a long ways in there before they realized that the main villain was Darkseid.
Yep.
And I was like, man, like pre-internet and everything, like how cool must that have been reading that?
I
Yes.
remember the Legion, that the Great Darkness saga is what really got me into Legion, because you also had Paul Levitz and Keith Giffen. That was where Keith Giffen kind of made
Oh,
his.
Kiffin and Larry Malstock were killing the art on that. Like
And
rereading it now, I'm like, this would be a bestseller today.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and you see how Keith Giffen's artwork is evolving as he goes. You can see
yeah.
his style really comes together, and now incredible. I mean, yeah, incredible. And we lost another good one. I'm telling you, when
He
he
did
when he,
so much effortlessly, right? And like his later style that he evolved into is like so reminiscent of a lot of South American and European artists. Like Jose Munoz comes to mind immediately. Like what he developed into, but like he did a lot of like breakdowns for other artists because he just understood storytelling at a level that very few other people do, right? Like if you could get him or like Phil Hester to do your layouts for you, you're going to have a good comic book.
I loved Hester's run on Green Arrow. That
Oh,
one.
yeah.
I mean, everything that came out of that one. But I said I always laugh because of folks our age. When I talk to any DC fans, it's the big three that I have to ask: who is your Flash? Who is your Green Lantern? And which Aquaman did you hate the least? And those
Okay.
answers are usually pretty well telling if
Uh,
someone tells me.
so like Green Lantern is Kyle Rayner for me,
Bless you.
and Wally West for Flash. It's Ollie as Green Arrow for me. I didn't quite connect with Connor, but it's the um, Mike Grell Arrow where he's never actually called Green Arrow. I love that. Tim Drake is my Robin, right? I was definitely firmly in that era of the generational DC characters, but
They
also
had
Marvel,
legacy.
right? Like Danny Ketch is my Ghost Rider.
There you go. Yeah, I'm such a big fan of Legacy, and I hated when you could just see it on the horizon, and then back when Marvel and DC attended Comic Cons and showed you what they were going to come out with. I remember I was at the Wizard World where Dan DiDio came out, and he declared that the Silver Age is coming back, and it's like I turned to my friends, I'm like, well, we had a good run.
Yep. It's the old saying that every jumping on point is someone else's jumping off.
Mm.
That was it for me with them for a while. Yeah.
I enjoy that. Though that does bring me to my favorite quote in comics of all time goes to Eric Larson, who said, "If it's good enough, every comic book is a jump on point."
True. Like I started reading in the mid '80s, and you could get caught up to speed pretty quick with every issue. Now that said, like buying the omnibus collections of them now, I kind of have to read like one issue a day at most.
Yeah, they're
Like trying to
dense.
like sit down and read like five in a row, it's pulling some teeth.
It
Yeah.
is.
And before we go, any books or things that you'd like to recommend to our audience? FYI, I picked up Batman: The Dark Age on your recommendation, and I loved
So
it.
good,
Yeah,
so good. Like Mark Russell can't do wrong for me. Um, he didn't lean into the humor so much in that. But man, when he goes funny, he goes real funny, right?
yeah.
Like that Flintstones book that he and Steve Pugh did, is one of the best things DC's ever published. It was kind of like Humanity Year One.
Mhm.
Just so good. Let's see. Let's look at my Goodreads real quick here. I like his work quite a bit. I'm currently I don't know that I would recommend it. I love a lot of the Marvel Epic collections, and I'm making my way through the Midnight Suns. What was it? Midnight Siege, something like that collection. Not so great. Uh, it was when they just decided that let's try everything with Facebook coloring. James Tynion the fourth, everything he writes, I like quite a bit for newer stuff. Mark Wade's World's Finest, especially with Dan Morrow drawing, that stuff is killer. And they're doing a Justice League book now, right? Justice League Unlimited. Um,
Yeah.
I've heard that that's really good. For the first time, speaking of Mike Grell, there's John Sable freelance omnibuses out there, and I've read the first one of that for the first time. Yo, that rocked! And I'm so excited that they're finally later this year putting out a Warlord omnibus. Like,
Nice.
I'm ready. There's also finally a collection of The Spectre by John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake. Oh, like that stuff is so good. Um, so there's like some newer stuff I like. Recently, I've been like picking up a lot of older stuff that either I liked as a kid or that I never read. Yeah.
I agree. I picked up John Sable freelance when their first comics first put it out. And
Oh,
I loved it then, and yeah, the fact that they put it all together now for folks to get into, it is probably some of Mike Grell's best work.
Holds up today.
Yeah.
It's right in the vein of because I believe Grell served in Vietnam, but it's right there with a lot of those like '80s stories of like guys back from Vietnam trying to figure things out. Like it's in line with like the first season of Miami Vice or Spencer for Hire or the first season of Airwolf. I'm really showing my age here if the gray beard and bald head didn't do it for you. But like it fits right in that category. And but he was bringing like a level of like maturity to it that I was really impressed by. Like there some of the ways that he handles some of the stuff in there, like you wouldn't do today, but there's still like the genuine emotion behind it that works. Kind of like watching like Twin Peaks, right? Like there's a lot of things in there. It's like, whoa, where are you going with this, David Lynch? But like he was coming from such a good point that it all worked.
I agree.
Sure.
And
I gotta tell Mike Gold all of this, by the way. He's gonna eat this up. He is my my comic granddad.
Oh, cool.
He's all up in my posts, usually snarking on me for stuff. And anytime there is a name drop of First Comics or anything that he had his name on, I think I have to tell him legally.
Man,
or else tariffs, more tariffs.
they had a good run there. Like
They
that, Elric, Dreadstar. Ugh, Dreadstar's so good.
I was about to ask, have you done Grimjack yet?
I have not made my way into that.
There you go.
That's Tim Truman, right?
Yep, and John Ostrander.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. He was sort of your proto cyberpunk paladin before there was one, because that was John's excuse to do all that kind of stuff. That's my only claim to fame, is that my little comic company once got to drive John Ostrander from his house to Detroit Fan Fair. So we had him in the car for like 2 hours, and we were just like, we've got to ask him every possible question we've ever can, and he is the most soft-spoken individual you've ever met. And even within the confines of a minivan, I was driving like this, trying to listen. But yeah, he's John's a great guy. So, and I'm excited anytime people love his stuff.
Real quick, since you guys are comic book guys too, there was a Comic-Con I did once that was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like, I worked with WWE for a decade and cool. I met a lot of wrestlers, right? And that's neat. But like where I was set up, across from me was Neil Adams.
Wow.
Cat a corner from me, Tim Bradstreet. Next side over was Frank Cho, and then behind him was Jeff Darrow. And then behind Neil Adams was Steranko, right? So like I'm setting up the day before, and Neil Adams is setting up his booth, and I take a moment to go over and introduce myself to him, and say, like I'm really like your work, of course, has been an influence on me, but the way that you approach the business, like the negotiation and such side of it has actually had a huge impact on my career. And he's like, really? Tell me about that. And I do. And then he looks over at my booth and he's like, are you happy with the space they gave you? And I'm like, yeah, like I've got a corner booth. I'm right next to you. Like, what would I not be happy about? And he's like, do you think you have enough space to show off your prints? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And he's like, no, kid. And he comes over to my booth and reorganizes everything. He's pulling my tables out into the aisle. He's throwing stuff all around, and the showrunner comes up. And he's like, "Neil, you can't do this. There's fire codes." And so then the show organizer like puts my stuff back, but I've got like a foot more of space. And Neil winks at me and goes, "That's how it's done, kid."
It'll be impossible to top the Neil Adams feng shui booth move.
Well, that was not the biggest moment of the show. So they also had Chris Claremont there, who there's all these horror stories about, right? And like I was like, I'm not going to go introduce myself because I don't want to have a bad Claremont experience, right? Because I had a horrendous John Byrne experience as a kid. He flipped through my comic, threw it back at me when I was 15, and said, "Give up, kid. You don't have a chance." Luckily, Phil Hester was next to him and saw that happen, pulled me over, gave me like constructive advice. We ended up becoming lifelong friends. Anyway, Chris Claremont, they were doing like a launch event thing that was, I don't know, it was dumb. But like, Claremont and I are in a green room together. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, I gotta say, hey, I'm Rob Schamberger. I do paintings for WWE. It's a pleasure to meet you. He's like, wrestling. I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. Uh, uh, and I forget how it started, but we ended up talking for an hour about Stanley Kubrick films and Doctor Who, and not about comics or anything. And it was the coolest. And so like at the end when we were like called to do whatever the hell the thing was, we shake hands and I'm like, this just meant so much to me. Thank you so much. And he's like, I never get to talk about Kubrick. Uh, he's like, everyone wants to talk about the X-Men. And to which I said like, okay, so I have to throw one X-Men thing out. What they did with bringing Jean Grey back, they did you dirty. You had a story going somewhere, and they did you dirty. And he's like, "Thank you." So that was
Wow.
the Claremont story. It was incredible. I'm so glad it did not go the way that the John Byrne one did.
Yeah.
I'd want to talk to Chris Claremont about Willow.
Yeah.
Because he wrote those Willow sequels that like maybe 3 people have heard about. Nobody.
Oh, is that like they do those as graphic novels, or was it
No,
like?
they were prose. They were prose novels. He was writing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I remember I bought them, and I was like, "Oh, this is a Willow sequel." You wouldn't know it. You read the book, you'd go, "Holy crap!" They like because he changed and they had to change the names. They're going, "This is Willow," and of course, and it's I don't know if it was. I never saw the Willow series on Disney Plus. They might have disregarded. It seems like they disregarded the books at that point. But,
Yeah.
Anyway,
I gotta say,
hey,
for the fans that have stuck around for this is the weirdest, best deep dive you could ever fall off from a pro wrestling
That's the Rob
podcast.
Schamberger experience.
Hey, I'm
but
here
again,
for it.
no, and that's what we want to do here on the Torn Quadcast. We don't want to just talk about wrestling because again, there are plenty of shows out there that talk about wrestling. We bring you all forms of geeky entertainment here. All right, Rob, you have been so generous with your time. We don't want to keep you any longer. Before we go, again, let us know where can people follow you, find you on socials. Tell us what's coming up in the next few weeks.
Rob Schamberger on Blue Sky if you do social media still. The Rob Schamberger on Substack as well. Also, shopaew.com. Every Thursday at noon Central Time, there's a new signed print that's released. They normally sell out pretty quick, which, humble brag, dirt off my shoulder there. But that's about it right now.
And there's a Tony Storm coming.
There is in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah.
I have it sitting here. See if I can give you a preview.
Ooh.
Uh,
Folks, this is a Torn Quadcast exclusive, folks.
yeah.
Until it shows up in your newsletter.
Very true. Very true. We're getting the drop.
Well, I just finished this Danhausen.
Nice. Yep.
Turned
That's
out
good.
pretty nice. That's not the one I was talking about. It's a new one. That'll be at C2E2 at the time we're recording this. But Tony Storm.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I love that character. I'm a silent film and early Hollywood nerd, so I'm all in on that character.
Oh yes, she can do no wrong. And now that she is Rocky Balboa'd her way past Megan Bain, we can move on to the next one,
Right.
which will be good because I think the next pay-per-view for AEW is the big one.
Oh, in Texas, right?
Yeah, I think. I haven't. I mean, tonight they'll have the new Dynasty or whatever. I watched all the woulda couldas and who won on Sunday.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, we'll see where we go from here. Moxley's still making people mad, so one more month.
I don't get that. I mean, I don't again, I don't buy the because you're a bad guy, people hate you, they don't want your merch. If anything, again, Hot Rod sold t-shirts.
Oh, I'm not saying it's always that. I'm
Yeah.
saying that the people that are really doing the job of making people hate them, you can tell that they're good at it because you just can't give the stuff away, right? Like,
Wow.
this is fantastic. Couldn't sell anything of him.
Like,
And
there's heat. There's also go home heat, right?
Maurice was on it. People bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Moxley. I think he's treading the line. I think Jericho was too for a hot minute, and he just dropped his ROH title, so he's getting the fans back because people are watching the Cruise videos, going, I'd like to like him again. Moxley will the money's out on him. We'll see what happens when he finally opens the briefcase.
Cool factor to him. So again, those prints did sell.
Yeah, they will.
It just took like a month instead of 5 minutes.
Well, we want to see videos of the Jericho Cruise. Makes you love Chris Jericho. I want to see more of cat videos from Drew McIntyre with his kitty cat. I was following his TikTok. He had like one of his kitties is sick, and he was going out to TikTok to ask people what they thought could be going on because the vets were running him around. Of course, then you have the Miz. You were talking about the Miz. You can't dislike that guy when you hear about his story and you see the videos he does.
Yeah.
All the stuff that goes on. Again, when these wrestlers share about their personal experiences, it makes you like them more. Whether they're good guys, bad guys, whatever. And I think that kind of being an artist, I think that's part of it, sharing who you are.
Yeah.
Or you could be full gimmick like John Cena, who right now is actually stopping Wish kids from getting their wishes to happen.
Yeah, that one. No more making wishes for you kids.
I'm going to cancel them.
All these kids. Why don't you wish to die? That would be something.
John Ultimate Warrior.
Oh, wow. All right.
Can't
all right.
That.
You can't. Thank you, Rob, for this time that you're spending with us. We really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. I hope we can have you come back sometime to talk about what else is going on. And this has been fun. So for those of you who have been sticking on the YouTube page for this bonus content, thank you. As always, please make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, subscribe, share. Mike Gold out there, dude, we've dropped your name several times, so I'm expecting Mike Gold to share this video too. First Comics, I loved First Comics.
I'll get him on here.
Oh, that'd be great. Love to have Mike Gold on as well.
He's the only pull I've got, Elliot. I can get that.
And there's so very little you have. All right, then let's have you hold on to that one card for a while. For Rob Schamberger, Mark Allen Fishman, I am Elliot Serrano. This has been the Torn Quadcast. And folks, again, we're all nerds. We're all geeks all together. We're all fans. Love your fandom. Love what it is that you're into. Don't be toxic. Enjoy it. We only have one life to live. So let's love it. Right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.